Glacier Bay National Park is one of the highlights of everyone's visit to Alaska's Inside Passage. It is the farthest north that we have gone on our trips. And, this picture here shows the magnificent scenery that makes this area so popular with visitors. To get to Glacier Bay, most people will probably depart from the Juneau area. We usually like to position the boat in Auk Bay, which is saves about 30 miles compared to leaving from the main harbors in Juneau itself, Juneau proper. Then from there, it's about 75 miles to Bartlett Cove, which is where the visitor center is and where you check in, and then proceed from there up to the glaciers in the northwestern part of the bay. This video shows animation shows a transition up the long, narrow channel up to Juneau itself, and then continuing on to Auk Bay, continuing on by air. You can't reach there by boat unless you go around the corner. If you visit Juneau downtown, you'll probably stay at these two harbors, which are Aurora and Harris. But Auk Bay, as I mentioned, is where we usually go. It's closer to the airport, as well as Sportsman's Warehouse and some other provisioning sites. Here's Auk Bay Marina there, and on a nice day, you get a chance to look up towards the east to Mendenhall Glacier and the snow-capped mountains in that area. Here's the Maggie Ann, our boat, at Auk Bay, looking to the east, and one of the nice days that we had on our last trip. When you get to Bartlett Cove, you call in at the entrance into the bay on channel 16 to Kilo Whiskey Mike 20. That's the ranger station at Bartlett Cove. Tell them that you're entering. You have to have a permit. I think I mentioned that, or maybe not. There are 25 permits. They're free. Every day, that's 25 permits are available. Well, I should say 25 boats are allowed in the bay every day. So there may not be any permits because other people are already there. Anyway, you can request a permit by applying up to 60 days ahead of time, and that's what they call their advance notice permits. Half of those are reserved for that type, and the other half are what they call short notice permits, and you can apply for those up to 48 hours in advance. And one year when we went up here, we weren't able to get any of the advance notice permits, but as we were coming up from Warm Springs, we were able to call in 2 days ahead. They did have a permit available for us, and we were able to get in that way. So when you get to Glacier Bay, the entrance to the bay and the first few miles are considered what they would call whale waters. And so there's certain restrictions. The whales typically feed close to shore, so you're not allowed to cruise along the shoreline. And they require you to maintain a 1 nautical mile distance from the shore, or if it's narrower than 2 nautical miles across, like it is in Bartlett Cove, then you maintain a centerline course. Okay. In the visitor center in Bartlett Cove, there's a public use dock and a fuel dock. Gas and diesel and marine sewage pump out are available at the fuel dock. It's managed by the Glacier Bay Lodge, so you call them up on channel 16 to request an attendant to come down. And the public use dock is where you'll park the boat after getting fuel and walk up to the visitor center. You can also get water here at the public use dock. There's a cool exhibit here showing the skeleton of a humpback whale. The story of this particular whale is given on the display panel here. It was a whale that was killed after being struck by a cruise ship, and volunteers, dissected the whale and extracted the skeleton and used it to build this display here. From Bartlett Cove itself, once you've checked in and watched the videos and seen the small museum and walked around a little bit, then most people will go up to the northwest part of the bay where the Tidewater glaciers are located. There are also tidewater glaciers on the northeast channels, but those are reserved for kayakers and other non-motorized vessels. So in our boats, we wouldn't be allowed to go up into these side channels. So, but anyway, there's plenty to see up in the northwest part. Here's a picture I took of the Marjorie Glacier itself, with the sun just setting over the mountains. And from here, I've got a little animation that kind of covers this particular area. So we'll start with the Marjorie and Grand Pacific glaciers, and then work our way down to the southern valley here where the Johns Hopkins Glacier is located, then the Lamplugh Glacier, and then this valley here, the Reed Inlet and Reed Glacier, is our preferred anchoring site. We'll anchor in that little bight there on the right-hand side of the screen. And here's the Maggie Ann on a nice day in Reed Inlet, and we spent the night here. The glacier itself is almost a tidewater glacier. You can see it stops just short of the shoreline, so there'll be no icebergs entering into Reed Inlet, at least none from this glacier. And one of the cool things we've done is take the dinghy, taken it all the way down to the end there and parked it on the beach and walked up and explored the glacier itself. What you might find is there's a lot of meltwater coming down, so there might be a 30-foot wide rushing torrent that prevents you from getting onto the glacier right at the very base. But you can hike up to the side there some distance until the water gets shallower and kind of explore around that way. Some of the wildlife that you will see here, well, whales, of course, but tufted puffins make this one of their nesting sites, and they'll burrow into the shoreline, lay their eggs, and then go out to feed, and then come back to feed their chicks. And I think that's about a 5-month period. We saw these birds in early August, so that would be a good time for them. You'll see lots of sea otters in the south part of Glacier Bay. Seems like they're pretty ubiquitous there. Estimate we probably saw several hundred. And the otter population in southeast Alaska was almost extinct due to fur hunting, and some otters from Aleutian Islands were brought down here and used to repopulate the sea otters in the southeast Alaska. It's been very successful, perhaps too successful from this point of view of fishermen who are crabbing and hunting abalone and sea cucumbers. But the sea otters, while they eat those animals, they also eat sea urchins, which are a big predator of kelp forest. So the places where the sea otters have been reintroduced is the kelp population and ecosystem has been recovering really nicely, but at the expense of some of the other shellfish. And here's a video of, you'll see lots of these rafts of 50 to 100 groups of sea otters located in all through the southern part. Then when you're done with your trip up into Glacier Bay and you're heading south, then you have a couple of different choices as you go down here. We've done both of these. If you refuel in Hoonah, you can either continue on south on the eastern side of Baranof Island to Pavlov Harbor, Hidden Falls, Warm Springs, Red Bluff Bay, and eventually Petersburg. All of those we have videos on, and great places to visit. Or if you continue north and back over to Juneau area, then you can visit Juneau and then continue on south from there to Tracy Arm, which is another great place, by the way, to look for glaciers. So if you can't get a permit for Glacier Bay, then Tracy Arm is a wonderful spot, as well as the LeConte Glacier near Petersburg. I also mentioned that Glacier Bay, maybe to get up close and personal with the glaciers, might be a better choice than Tracy Arm, just because the open water section in Glacier Bay is wider, and so there's more opportunities to move around and find open pathways through the ice that's calving from the glacier. Whereas in Tracy Arm and LeConte Bay, the fjords are narrower, and so if there's a lot of ice activity, then you might find it difficult to work your way through there and actually get to the glaciers. So there's our Glacier Bay presentation. I hope you guys do get a permit if you're heading this direction, and thank you for watching.